Yay! So welcome to our very first book club in the Silver Siren Sanctuary. I am so excited to introduce author, mother, fellow mermaid, and Silver Siren, Joanne Fedler. I'm going to hand it over straight over to you, Joanne. Yay!
Oh, thank you so much, Faith, and everybody who has so generously gifted their evening to spend with me tonight. And thank you, firstly, Faith, for inviting me to, kick off this inaugural book club. I'm always just so in awe of all the wonderful ways in which you manage to build community for women our age. And this is just yet another one of those beautiful spaces that you've just created. So thank you, as always, for your vision and your activism, because it's activism. I don't know if people realize how much energy it takes to organize things, and you just seem to have this amazing energy of just constantly being able to build and offer more and more things. So I mean, for me, I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to be in conversation, because that's what I hope tonight will be. This is not me talking about my book. This is, I hope, a conversation that my book can start. And what I want to say about Unbecoming is that it is a book that is built on conversations. Those of you who've read it, those of you who are reading it will see that actually all it really is a group of women sitting around and talking. And why this is sort of unusual, and I guess why I was really compelled to write it. Actually, is the third in a trilogy of books that I began to write when my children were really small. Started with a book called Secret Mother's Business, which I wrote in 2006, which was published in 2006, and then a follow-up called The Reunion, which was published in 2012. And it was, it really tracks the life of a particular woman who has, in that instance, chosen to have children and has had her two children and is in a relationship. But what I really noticed when I got to this age was that there was so, there are lots and lots and lots of stories. All stories really generally will involve some kind of protagonist. If it's a female protagonist, there are all kinds of storylines that could be involved, but very often women are used in stories in ways that I don't relate to. And what I really have found, and I think something is changing, there is a kind of a zeitgeist feeling of some kind of change, is that women of our age were not ever really truly represented as kind of the holders of a certain kind of storytelling, or as the certain kinds of heroes, because once we have surpassed our kind of like so-called sexual desirability, which I think sort of happens around somewhere in our 40s, perimenopausally, certainly for the way people think about us. Of course, that doesn't have anything to do with how we might think about ourselves or how we might experience our own sexuality. It's got to do with the way we're portrayed and seen and represented. There's always, whenever you talk about a menopausal woman, there's always sort of something quite kind of like sad and pathetic about it, that, oh, she's menopausal. Even the word kind of feels almost like kind of derogatory, sort of depressing, a dried up and saggy and wrinkly and gray and all the things that as women we are taught to be terrified of. This phrase that I see all over Facebook: anti-aging cream, anti-aging exercises. And I look at that and I'm thinking, why would you want to anti-age? What is age if not the greatest gift of life? And the idea that you can somehow stop, reverse, prevent all these terrible things from happening to you. So I kind of don't buy into any of that. And of course, the whole Silver Sirens ethos is the antithesis of that. It's about how we age in this glorious, delicious, sexy, sensual, alive way, how we become more ourselves, more alive, more who we were born to be as we get the great gift of age. as every birthday allows us to claim, you know, that much more experience, that much more life, that much more sorrow, grief, loss experience. And so what really got me was a movie called Wine Country, which I greatly anticipated, because I was told it was about a group of women going away to celebrate a friend's 50th birthday. And I thought, oh my gosh, how amazing. This is going to be something so fantastic. I can't wait to see a movie about women who are all in their 50s, right? And it was with some of my favorite actresses. And I watched this movie and I became enraged while I watched it, because what it was a group of women our age who were doing everything they could not to be their age. They were trying to act like they were in their 20s. They were horrified, terrified, acting out. There was just all this kind of behavior that I looked at and I just couldn't relate to any of it. And I felt it infantilized women our age. It made us look stupid. It made us look pathetic. I didn't want to be anyone in that movie. And so when I got to the end of it, I thought, well, I want to write something that is the absolute antithesis of Wine Country. I want it to be about a group of women who, in every way, but without them knowing, are all inspirational, heroic. They don't claim those words or those terms, but in the way that they live and in the way that they exist, they embody deep nurturing, deep love of not only you know, themselves and acceptance, but you know, of their children, of other people's children, of the earth. You know, all the ways in which women give are so invisible, you know, but I wanted every woman to embody different qualities, and I wanted readers to see different aspects of themselves in the different characters, as I have in previous books. So that's what started this book, and it was not an easy book to write. I can tell you that I had already written like 20,000 words of a book that I then realized was completely on the wrong track, and I started all over again. The name of the book changed a couple of times. Initially, it was called The Sabbatical, because it was about a woman who leaves her marriage for 3 months to go on a marriage sabbatical. And she's not in an unhappy marriage, because those are the other tropes that we're all, you know, in these like, you know, bad marriages. And the only reason a woman would leave a marriage is because, you know, she's with an abuser or she's with somebody who doesn't value her or whatever. But what happens if you're in a good relationship? If you're with somebody who does value you and does love you, what would it, you know, would a woman maybe decide maybe to leave a marriage like that? And why? Why might she decide to do that? I mean, that to me is just a much more interesting question, because the idea of good and bad, I think when you get to our age, is a little unhelpful, not very sophisticated. We all know that every relationship, you know, is complex, that all things are paradoxical, that you know, joy and grief exist together, and that irritation and adoration can coexist and can be felt, you know, in the same moment, and nothing is ideal, nothing is perfect. And so what would it mean for us to self-actualize at an age when we have done all the things that we were supposed to do? You know, we did the things that we thought were the right things to do. We excelled at whatever we chose to do. If we wanted children and when we could, we had them, or we chose not to have them, or, you know, we ended up divorced, or, you know, someone divorced us, or, you know, whatever it is, we get to a certain age. What would it mean to self-actualize at this age? And that's kind of that's what I was really grappling with, you know, a woman who is at the point where she is, her grown-up children don't need her anymore. So her mothering part of her life is over, and she doesn't know where she belongs anymore. Does she belong in this marriage? She doesn't belong with her children. She knows that they're off into their lives. Does she belong with her aging parents? A lot of us have got aging parents, or parents who are dying or have passed away. I just lost my mother 9 months ago, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that. It's an incredibly powerful transition. It's an incredibly powerful portal to walk through, and I feel so grateful to have walked through it at midlife and not earlier, because I feel life equipped me. But also what surprised me was how hard it was to lose a mother at the age of 54. I really thought it would be easier, and it wasn't. It shocked me how hard it was. And I wondered why I hadn't been told that before. But when I wrote this book, my mum was still alive, and I actually dedicated it to her. I think I must have had some premonition that I would lose her soon. I guess, she, when you've got a mother who's, close to 80, you realize that time with them is running out. So to make this more of a, something more interactive, what I'm going to do is I am going to start off just by reading the author's warning, which sort of kicks off the book and kind of, gives you the sense of it. And then I really just want to open it to conversation. If there's anything, any aspect of the book, any part of the book, any theme in the book, anything at all, or any part of the book that made you think of something that you would like to have a conversation about, I would really like to just open it to all of us to have a conversation about it. So the author's warning on page 15 starts with a quote by Maria de Andrade, which goes, "We have two lives, and the second one begins when you realize you only have one." That for me is the biggest theme of this time of life, is the appreciation that time is running out. We know it when we're younger, but I think we only really know it when we reach midlife. And if any of us are lucky enough to have reached midlife, we've all lost somebody younger than us. And when you lose a sister, a brother, a friend, a cousin who is younger than you, and you get to outlive them, you really, you live harder. I feel like I live more fully because of the people I have lost. Okay, you're about to enter perilous terrain. Relax, there's nothing you can do to avoid it. You'll stumble into it no matter which route you choose. The furious, fearsome knowledge, shit, I'm running out of time. Blame it on menopause, but a sudden empty nest or the slamming shock of losing a parent, spouse, friend, or your health will deliver you here just the same. You may wander the paths of anxiety, burnout, depression, joylessness, infidelity, yours or your spouse's, resentment at events long past, heterosexuality remorse, irrational rage, disappointment, and emptiness. And those are just the overcrowded ones. You'll have some questions, all right, like whether your spouse is more of a habit than a soulmate, a barrier to something more, even if you have no idea yet what that is. You'll be itching to peel off the one-size-fits-all life you were certain fit perfectly when you made those in sickness and in health vows. It's a seismic jolt between I do and fuck you. You'll be perplexed by the way the young adult kids have turned out and wonder whether your time might have been better spent on fill in the passion you never pursued for the sake of the darlings. You'll declare that what you used to want isn't doing it for you anymore, that you have changed your mind. The urge to empty your pockets of friendships, sexual orientations, expectations, and life goals will make you feel like a nutcase. In the tussle, you'll regret the half-century you've spent being polite, responsible and dutiful as a daughter, wife, partner, mother, caretaker, and realize that, frankly, you're fucking over it all. This is it. This is where your second life begins and where Unbecoming kicks off. It's entirely a work of fiction, but as in Secret Mother's Business and The Reunion, the two books that preceded, I've drawn on real encounters, personalities, and experiences to populate it. I spent several nights in the wild, including the Australian outback and a cave in the Blue Mountains, and immersed myself in a sacred healing circle, writers group, and a dancing and new moon ritual with different women. We spoke long and deep and generously into the furies, wildness, and brokenheartedness of being alive at this age, in this era. It's been impossible to write this book without being affected by the tectonic breakdown of our natural environment. Many of us have long intuited the troubling times that lie ahead, and the hard work of being a wise adult has never been more necessary. I then talk about all the people that have influenced my journey, And I say that the story takes place in a world just before the devastating Australian bushfires over the summer of 2019 to 2020 and the subsequent coronavirus pandemic, when our worst fears were nothing but forecasts, a deep felt dread one might mistake for a symptom of menopausal anxiety. But we know better now. It's my prayer that we each make our way consciously and courageously into the uncertain tomorrows, wise, fierce protectors of the only mother who has yet to fail us, the earth. Go, dear ones, claim your second life. So that's the author's warning.
That is so beautiful. Do you mind if I say something?
Please, no, I would love somebody to speak.
Yeah. No, that was
other than me.
beautiful. You know, when you were reading that, and I'm really glad we started with the author's warning, because I feel like it just set the pace. And it's like everything you said in there just kind of encapsulated where we're going. And I loved when you were comparing, you were talking about the disappointment when you saw Wine Country and the way it depicts women. This felt like the absolute antithesis. This was like raw, naked. I had the pleasure of actually being one of the people that reviewed your book. And that for me, it was that rawness. It was so real, so honest. I absolutely loved it and still love it. And I love that beginning. What a beautiful quote, just that sense. And even though I've heard it before, it really did kind of give me goose pimples, you know, hearing it again, because that's exactly it. It's such a simple truism, isn't it? That it is when we get to that space of really understanding, wow, this is it. And we are so privileged that we're right there. We're right there in this unbecoming space. So thank you so much for that intro. So I'm going to open the space.
Please open it.
Just one is put your hand up or to a little thing, and let's just make it a really interactive process. So whatever jumped out at you in what Joe just read, please add in your voice.
Comments, questions, feedback, personal anecdote.
Hi, Joe. I just wondered how you felt at the end of writing this book. Had your personal journey differed along the way? Well, after you finished reflecting on it, was there something that really kind of struck you?
Yvonne, you know, I mean, finishing any book is always such a kind of a resolution of some emotional journey that you've gone on. I mean, a book takes 2 years to write. And it's a process, as you know, of layering and returning and layering and refining and thinking and working out actually what you feel about things. I mean, I think a lot of writing is about trying to work out how you feel about something. You start with a troubled feeling, which you sometimes don't even have language for. And I felt, you know, by the end of this book, you know, that I had embodied that part of that quote, the Rilke quote, that's the poem that starts it, which is, you know, let everything happen to you, you know, everything happen to you. And, you know, I feel like the point that we're at in our lives at this point is we are all, we've been so fired in the kiln of life at this point. Not a single one of us has not been like, had our hearts bashed out of us if we are at this age. There's not a single one of us who has walked through life unscathed, who hasn't been burnt, hurt, disappointed, filled with a sense of tragedy, filled with a sense of meaninglessness, wondered what the point of it all was, and yet we're still here. And for me, you know, when I got to the end of it, I really felt like because I'd also had to conceive of these 6 different characters, they were all fictionalized, you know, people, and I had to enter into each one's journey, and each one is walking, they're all walking on the same path, but they're all walking different journeys. And if you've read it, the book, you know, they're all dealing with some profound loss or grief. They're all trying to come to terms with some profound loss or grief, different ones, whether it is health, whether it is anxiety about a child who has got physical or mental health problems, you know, whether it's a marriage, whether it's whatever it may be. they're all grappling with it. And so I had to go, you know, when you write a character, you have to walk that emotional journey with them, and you have to find some way of holding it with them into the end and resolve it in some way, even if it's not a perfect ending. So I think what I felt by the end of it is that I had walked many paths. I'd been able to enter into lots of different women's realities, but also because I've had lots and lots and lots of conversations with women our age. And I've always claimed that teenage girls and women in midlife are the most interesting people on the planet. And if there is any hope for our planet, it lives in teenage girls and women in midlife. We are the ones that are going to do something about whatever lies ahead. I just don't see it happening in any other way. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose, I don't know if it's a very long answer to your question, but I'd been with all of those women. I'd walked with them to the end of that journey. I'd gone out with them into the wild and come back. But Yvonne, as you know, I came back with a mother in this book, but I lost my mother soon afterwards. And I have to say that has changed me too. And so there is still an innocence in this book that I hadn't yet lost, which I have now lost. And I feel like a very different person than the person who wrote this book and the person who finished this book.
Yvonne, was that good? Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks, Jo. That was really helpful. I'd love to know more about the Jo that would write the book now, but perhaps another time.
Right. I do feel that there's more to say. I honestly thought at the end of this book that I had said absolutely every single thing that I could ever possibly say. I was done. At the end of that book, I said, that's it, I'm finished. And of course, I mean, I had no clue. And I've started, when my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer at the end of 2020, I actually started writing what I called letters to my dying mother. And I wrote letters to her throughout her illness, but not that she ever read. They were just letters that I wrote to her. And then through her death, and then all the way to now, I still write these letters to her. And maybe someday that will become an offering that I might share more widely. But it's very different, a very different person who wrote those letters, you know.
We look forward to it. Absolutely. We look forward to that. Letters to my mother. Beautiful. Dahlia, over to you.
Hi, Dahlia.
Sorry, beloved.
You're muted, sweetheart. I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm just saying I'm so grateful and excited to hear you, because I've just been through.
You muted again. You somehow muted again, Dahlia. Sorry.
Why
can you? I don't know. Can you start that again? You said you've just been through.
Yeah, I've been through the phase that you are describing, because you know, it could have been menopause. You see, my menopause, when I started my menopause, I met the man of my life. And
wow.
I had 20 years of a romance that never ended.
Oh.
And I had, you know, he became my manager. My life changed. I wrote a thesis. I've done, you know, courses, and I've done 20 years of unending romance. And I was I was 50, and I wasn't the menopause didn't want to. I finally finished my periods at 60, over 60 I was.
Wow.
When it ended. And then, you know, it kept being such an adventure, and I had a full life, traveling and working, and my family with me. My daughter was here, and then he passed away 7 years ago.
Oh.
So yes, he was 77, And now I'm 77, and I feel like that I'm just starting my menopause, my real menopause now, because I have lost my home, lost my money, lost my partner, my family. I have no family. My daughter doesn't live with me. I'm sort of solo. And you know something? What are you saying now? I'm learning to be what you call a mensch through all that. And I'm learning how to be happy unconditionally, loving unconditionally. All those things that all your life you try to find. This is now when I'm completely like naked. Start again.
Wow. Wow.
So this is another story. I'm writing a book, by the way, and I have to talk to you about it.
Amazing, Dahlia.
It's so inspiring to hear all of that, Dahlia. Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
But your book will be so essential for me because you are. I don't know. I don't know who's mom and who's the teacher and who we are both.
Wow. I think when we get to this age, and maybe when we've lost the mothers we had, we have to learn how to be, and we've lost the children that not lost the children. Well, some of us actually might have actually lost children, but a lot of women I speak to have lost their children to adult children who don't speak to their parents, who don't have anything to do with their parents. I've just helped a woman finish a book where her adult son has decided he wants nothing to do with her, so she's lost that child. But also we lose our children to their lives. And I never conceived of my life beyond motherhood. I think I just had this very narrow idea of myself. And so that when that left, it really was a total reinvention. And never mind that, I feel like my body left. It never mind the periods, but as I write in Unbecoming, it's like I don't know what turns me on anymore. It's like, but my desire has changed. And my husband will say to me, tell me what to do. And I'll be like, I have no idea. It's like my vagina's had a personality change. It's changed its personality. What it used to like, it doesn't like anymore. And I don't, and it's just I don't even know the answer to that question, right? So it is, you can either sort of say, oh, well, that's sad. What used to it doesn't. And we can just be like, well, isn't this a wonderful opportunity to become more curious, to ask better questions, to use better machinery or whatever it may be?
Adventures. I'm ready for adventures still.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful also, I think, to have women who've walked ahead of you, who tell you, come on, this is going to be an adventure. I mean, I have a friend who's in her 80s, a Buddhist friend whom I met when I was in my late 20s, and she was in her 50s. And she said to me, Joanne, your 50s are the best years of your life. And I thought, that's so sad that she would say that your 50s are the best years of your life. Surely not. And I want to tell you, so far, if I look at my life, I can definitely say so far that my 50s have been the best, because I think what we get here, and this might be something what you're saying, Dahlia, even though yours is tinged with some serious hardships that perhaps one has to really have a lot of grit to withstand. But this is the first time in my life that I feel like I've actually had real freedom. Because when I was in my 20s, as much as maybe I was unattached, I wasn't in a relationship yet, I didn't have children yet, mentally, I knew that I wanted to have children. And so it wasn't that I had the world open to me. I had a tiny, very narrow little path open to me, because that was the only way I wanted to go. I didn't consider the entire spectrum of everything else that I was not going to have. So I pursued that path. That's not freedom. And then I got onto that path. And once you're on that path, boy, you have to stay on that path for a very long time before the children leave. And then you suddenly go, oh, oh, there was just this whole world out there that I never even contemplated that is now available to me. And that is where I find myself right now. I could travel anywhere. My husband's pretty independent. If I wanted to go away for a while, I could do it. He wouldn't, I don't feel any real constraints apart from the cat, but you can always get a cat sitter. And so I have actually started I've made a big change recently in the last couple of weeks in terms of my profession. And it's the most excited I've been in a very, very, very long time, which I'll tell you about in a little while. But I do want to hear from other people. But thank you so much, Dalia. I feel that you are one of those wonderful inspirations.
You're welcome.
So thank you.
Great. So I could see Sarah. Sarah, let's go to you.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. I read Unbecoming, I think in 2020. I think that's when I got it in a competition on the Silver Sirens. It was fabulous. I was so excited. Thank you. And I just couldn't put it down. And also there was so much in it, and all the layers and all the journeys and all that was just fantastic. And also the Australian sort of setting and everything was really great. But what really, I just had so many moments of laughing out loud, and I think I've bookmarked some of the pages because I wanted to go back and read it, because honestly, it's so funny, so fucking funny.
I'm so happy to hear that. That's such a nice compliment. Thank you. So I wanted women to laugh their heads off.
I loved it. It was just down and dirty, funny, gritty, juicy. Just loved it.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I think there is something really very funny about, getting to this end of this sort of seriousness of life and realizing actually it's not all that serious, and the kind of ridiculousness of bleeding for 30 years and then suddenly it not bleeding anymore, and you're like, geez, God's truth, what kind of a bad joke, was this played on us? What did I miss out on all those years of managing my bleeding? And the thing as well that I think is funny, Sarah, is how angry we get and over what we get angry. Because I tell you, anger for me has been the most delicious emotion that I had never allowed myself to feel.
That's
until now.
Exactly right. It's like that's the other thing I think in the book that I latched onto, or something I resonated with, is letting go of that guilt about being I always thought I was a rebel, but I still had this kind of, I got to be good, like the good girl, or, because it's society, isn't it? Or whatever, our upbringing and conditioning and everything. But funny how menopause just pulls the rug out, and you just I used to laugh at that show, Grumpy Old Women. Do you remember that? And I used to think, oh my God, they're so funny and ridiculous. Imagine being all irritated about things, little things like that. And I think, I'm a grumpy old woman now, I'm a curmudgeon.
I know, a curmudgeon. This termagant, which is this word that I discovered when I was writing this book, which I'd never heard about. And actually what is really funny is how terrified men are of us now. They are terrified of women at this age, because we see through all the shit. We recognize that they are totally overvalued for being unbelievably ordinary, and that women have been so undervalued for being extraordinary. And we just have kind of we're over it, we're just over all of that. We just kind of cut through it, see through it, and there's something so delicious about really not. And this is why this term mansplaining, I love it. I wish I'd had it when I was younger, because it just ends the conversation, where Yeah.
Now, I was going to say, could we read the little passage on anger then, and we can open up?
Oh, of course, of course. This actually, yeah.
Sorry, Sarah, Sarah, if you weren't finished, just Joe and I talked about this piece on anger, and I thought this was a perfect time to bring it in.
Right. Okay. So this is on page 164. I don't know why you're so angry, Frank tutted. How fucking dare you tell me how I'm feeling? His equanimity was baffling. Couldn't he see? Every vegetable in the supermarket, find me an exception, was asphyxiated in cling wrap or polystyrene. Facebook had become a platform for white supremacists, chauvinists, and climate change denialists. We were still mining coal in Australia. And who the fuck had eaten my vanilla slice I'd left in the fridge? Don't sweat the small stuff. You'll give yourself a hernia, Frank said. And God help me, a cliche thrown in there was like a lit cigarette flicked into a drought-ravaged bush. Besides, none of this was small stuff. I'd been saving that vanilla slice. I'd slammed the door on my way out. I'm going for a walk. You do that, Frank called out, and take some nice deep breaths. I strode out, seething. Something in me had ruptured, and with no assurance that it had finished rupturing. I had never known rage. Passion, yes, but not anger. I'd grown up with an angry father, and I'd made my vows about not repeating history's histrionics. A temper is not very attractive on a lady, my Granny B would say when I'd express a strident opinion or raise my voice. So I'd adjusted myself. I'd managed my ire with the same tenets I applied to my weight, with deprivation and denial. I starved myself of legitimate fury against sexist jokes and casual misogyny so as not to fuel the stereotypes or be responsible for further anti-woman sentiment. I assured Frank that I didn't mind him putting on the TV in the lounge room to watch rugby and boxing. I accepted these as a matter of taste, as in not for me, but you go ahead and enjoy it. Though I'll tell you right now that he never stayed when I was doing meditation, kirtan, or yoga nidra. I became expert at concession, hyper-flexible with my wants, so accustomed to their erosion to accommodate others. All the while, I was erasing myself with every "I don't mind" I uttered. But as soon as my periods dried up, my tolerance for my own tolerations ceased, and I finally let rip the flatulence a marriage forces us to keep tightly sphinctered in our hearts. As my mercury rose, the world around me seemed to become a madhouse. And why was I the only one who could see how the cling wrap on the pumpkin was connected to the death of phytoplankton in the ocean and the smug Facebook post by a journalist who claimed that the feminist movement had gone a little too far? Also, Frank should have known better. I'm all for a good laugh, but there is a time and a place. He contested the preposition, but I know the difference between laughing with and laughing at. For starters, I wasn't laughing. It was a stinking hot day, which begs the question, why were stockings even in play? I'd come back from a meeting in the city and torn them off, ripping them to shreds. I turned the attack to my blouse, popping buttons, got into a brawl with my bra until I wrestled it to the ground. With naked breasts gasping free at last, I'd yanked my underwear drawer out of its wooden socket and hauled out every pair of bra and stockings, tossing them like electric eels onto the floor. Who the fuck designs these things? And that's when he chuckled. Are you laughing at me? I'd yelled. Definitely not. You are. You're laughing at me. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I have to wear ties and long trousers, Frank had shrugged as he backed out the door. Sorry, my love, I didn't make the rules. Yeah, but all you men love this bloody pornographic lingerie, itsy bitsy lacy garments of affliction. You can wear granny panties up to your chin for all I care. I'm interested in what's inside them. He didn't dare come in for a goodbye kiss. It can be this simple. A pile of stockings on your bedroom floor and you find yourself addressing no one in particular with the solemnity of a blood oath. No more torture. Over that stack of nylon hosiery and underwire girdles, you swear you will never squeeze yourself into anything tight and castigating again. You make a vow against confinement, discomfort, or pressure sores. You declare your body a peace zone. You denounce your allegiance to Victoria's Secret. How could constriction of one's breathing be a way to exist, be creative, love the world, love oneself, I then raided my cupboard like a woman on the trail of betrayal for anything resembling a pincer elasticized waist, my ass, snug fitting, armpit piercing, tummy flattening, zip or button in the wrong place trouser. I bagged all that athletic clothing I used to preen in, the clingy, needy lycra, the body-hugging, claustrophobic yoga gear with straps and ribbons and netting, and donated it to the Salvation Army, though why I would inflict such needless suffering on those who are already suffering shows you how careless I can be when I am in a fury.
That was wonderful. Thank you. You know, I loved, oh my God, there's so much in there that I love, but I love the no more suffering, you know, the no more suffering. And for me too, at the age of 50, I am not going to wear any more high heels for anybody. I will not be uncomfortable for nobody. But what you and I were talking about before was around that anger, was that as growing up, we weren't allowed to be angry. And I know my father was an intellectual, and he just said to me, intellectual people or clever people or smart people were never angry. There's other ways to express yourself. There was no way. So I internalized that too. Could you tell me a little bit about your stuff on anger, and then we'll go around the room and speak to the other women around it?
Right. Well, I grew up with an angry father. My father had a lot of, grief-related anger. He lost his mother very young, but he took it out on me. And he had a huge temper. I was terrified of him. And, he used to hit me. And I'm sure that's why I ended up doing a lot of work with abused women for many, many years of my life. But I then worked with abused women for many, many years. And I've always had a thing about angry men. I'm terrified of male anger. And I'm highly sensitive to it. It doesn't have to be physical. I find aggression in language, in body language, in tone, in the way that men talk to women, in the way that men don't talk to women, ignore us. I find all of that to be like a form of violence. And so I'm highly sensitive to it. And I always adopted this persona that I was not an angry person. But I think all of that was just a defense against my anger. I have really been able to be with my anger, and the way that I was able to be with my anger is that I had an angry son, and he taught me, because I made it bad. When he was angry, I made it bad. It was wrong. I didn't want an angry son. I had issues with his anger, and he has been my greatest teacher, because I never allowed him to just have anger. I never thought it was a legitimate emotion, and especially not in men. But I had to do a lot of healing, and he was my teacher. And I now have an amazing relationship with him, and I also have a good relationship with my own anger and with anger as an emotion. And I feel like righteous anger, also, just embracing the idea of the goddess Kali, who, is the goddess of anger, and how important it is for women to have righteous anger and to feel their anger. How it is not an empowering thing to not be angry at things that require our anger. And there is a lot in this world that we have to be angry about. The one thing that we just need to be careful of is just, how much energy we give to that anger, and whether it's feeding us or it's destroying us. We don't want to feel, to feel that our anger is something that scorches us or people around us. So there are lots and lots of really healthy ways of channeling our anger. But I would really just love to hear how everybody else has navigated their anger, or how people feel about their own anger, whether you have made friends with it.
Maybe we can have someone who hasn't spoken yet, so we can really get everyone's voices in. Who would like to jump in that hasn't spoken? Yeah, go, Annabelle.
Hi. Just quickly, I just, everything that you're saying in the book, and it's so awesome to hear you reading it, it's totally just nailing it for me in my experience. And I feel like that group of women is the kind of women that I hang out with, and I just love the irreverence and the humor. It's brilliant. It's just awesome. I feel like, having been very, very caring, a very gentle empath, you know, who's kind of always feeling everyone else's needs and feelings. That I'm actually really enjoying this sort of cantankerous kind of part of me that's starting to come out, and it's so freeing, and it's not really controllable. And I said to the kids this morning, you know, I'm turning into a cranky old hag, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. And they're like, "What's a hag?" They sort of quite excited about it as well. And yeah, and the rage, just watching the rage. My mum was quite is very strong, and her kind of rage hurt me a lot as a very sensitive child. So I was always kind of scared of that, and scared to be like that with my children. So I'm sort of trying to working with Faith, just on integrating that and having healthy anger, because I sort of feel like I'm ripping myself off by not, you know, exploring that more, and how much energy there is in it. Yeah, so it's sort of getting there. And I mean, I've always had really clear anger around sort of social justice stuff and mama bear stuff and any sort of underdog or that kind of thing. Like, always had that. That's been very clear for me, and worked, you know, and women worked, you know, previously as a criminal law on rape cases and things like that. And there's a lot of that kind of protection and sort of, you know, and domestic violence, women's law and stuff. So, yeah, there's definitely times when it feels like it's okay, but then, you know, just generally I want to be nice. But then I also just heard that I was listening to a podcast and said that the estrogen is the accommodating hormone. So when that starts to drop, we become a lot less accommodating. I thought, oh, that's so perfect. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have so many overlaps, Annabelle, because I also worked in that sphere for a long time, you know, and also used, you know, channeled my rage that way as well. But so I really understand that so well, and that idea of wanting to be nice and liked and good, and how unbecoming it is to be angry. You know, it's just not, you know, not, you don't want to be you know, that kind of angry kind of woman, right? And at this age, how we're prepared to be whatever kind of women we are.
Yeah.
You know, and it does feel very freeing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that.
Wonderful. Yeah, go Sasha, we'll see you.
Hello, thank you. This is fabulous. I'm relating to everybody and inspired and fascinated and kind of doing a lot of comparing and differences. I feel so similar in so many ways, and I relate to, you know, the angry father and having lost all your loved ones and being the last woman standing. I haven't finished bleeding yet. I'm still perimenopausal, but I am finding my hormones or something's going on. I'm going in and out of big cycles of deep, deep depression and grief and suicidal ideation, and then I'll feel fine and not fine. But I feel like also the difference I'm experiencing in listening, it's rageful difference. I feel so angry at my circumstances and my lot of having been through an abusive, neglectful childhood, through having mental illness and addiction around, through experiencing rape and extreme near-death drug addiction through my whole entire 20s, through having domestic violence and abuse of the last 20 years with my kid's father, my children now being products of having witnessed toxic, unhealthy, and his addiction in front of them. And my son just a few months ago saved his father from a drug overdose on the Easter weekend, and he's 13. And the situation with this person who I have felt so much rage, and I'm still sitting with so much rage, I want to kill him. But I've also been the protector and the person who's tried to rescue this grown adult to be the father that I thought my children deserved. And I feel like I've failed on every single level. I have been so fucked up by what messages I've received of how women should be. and who men are. And I just feel so fucking like I'm failing miserably. And I'm 50. I've just turned 50 a couple of months ago. My 40s have been hell. My sister got diagnosed with ovarian cancer 2 weeks before my 40th birthday. She died 6 years ago. And every single family member that is of importance to me has died in these 10 years, including some friends. And now this man is abandoning his children, leaving us destitute financially. I have dreams, but I don't know how to make them come true. I don't know how to thrive when all I am doing is surviving, and it feels so unfair. And I don't know what to do, and I am resilient, but I'm fucking sick of hearing, you know, someone said to me the other day, oh, you know, everyone gets through hard stuff. And I'm just thinking, oh, you fucking don't know. People drop by the wayside and kill themselves and die. How dare you? There are homeless people on the streets. Are they getting by? No, they're not. And, you know, I'm in supported housing. I have a really nice home, and I'm in a middle-class neighborhood. I have food. And sometimes I shoplift food because I can't afford to feed my children. And life's really fucking hard. And I'm sorry, I'm venting. I just want to break, and I want my 50s to be, you know, what I'm hearing you all talk about. I'm so inspired that you found the love of your life at 50, because life has just been so hard, and I haven't experienced true deep love. I don't think I've allowed it in. But I know that I'm deserving, and I know that I'm talented, and I know that I'm capable of so much. But the knocks that come, it's not imaginary, and it's not necessarily in my control. And it's really, really inspiring. I'm reading this book, you know, I have luxury moments in my outdoor bathtub. I had a bathtub today, and I read your book, and, you know, I have these little moments of luxury, but a lot of the time it's just like I feel like I'm just scrambling against barbed wire. And I've got a really funny croaky voice too, because I've had a nasty cough, and yeah, so I want to be inspired, but I'm also just aware of this other side of me that's so judgmental and so creating differences between me and your capabilities and who I am. And I'm just this piece of shit who'll never get anywhere. And I'm really sick of being stuck in this self-belief about myself. But it's also not just belief, it is also reality, and it is also circumstance. And I want so much to change it. And the rage and the anger is just kind of churning around. And I've got an angry teenager. God knows, you know, how could he not be? How could he not be angry and furious? His father's dead to him. He wants nothing ever to do with him. And yeah, I don't know what else to do other than just let that be, because it's healthier for me too to have absolutely no contact. Yeah. Sorry.
No, thank you, Sasha. Thank you. It was apt. We were talking, you know, specifically around the anger. So, you know, I'm glad that there was a space for you to kind of really connect with that. But I'm also really happy that there's those moments of luxury that you talk about, you know, and I see you in those spaces, you know, and it's good to acknowledge it's tough right now. And we're in our 50s, we're all probably all further along, you know. And I'd love
Just.
Yeah, and I'd love to say that the best is yet to come, because I'm an optimist, but I know that I don't want to do that spiritual bypassing, dumping optimism on you. So I just want to acknowledge that it's difficult for you right now. So we appreciate your honesty. I'm going to hand over to Jo.
Yeah, just to acknowledge the struggles of where you're at, Sash. Also, the book is not representative of where everybody is, right? You know, it's also a privileged group of women that are going on this walk who have the ability to, you know, take this walk. I'm also kind of very aware of the fact that it's not representative of everybody's circumstance or everybody's life experience. You know, we can't ever really imagine, you know, all the possible circumstances. And there are some people, you know, who maybe don't ever get to, I don't know, experience their 50s, you know, in the way that I've been privileged and fortunate to do so. People who've got chronic health issues. I've got friends who've got real chronic health issues, and there's a real ableism, you know, that can come in when we talk about all sorts of things, including health and, you know, taking self-care. You know, there's a whole, I think, sort of ableism around this whole idea of self-care and, you know, what that means and all of that. So we always just have to kind of, you know, as you say, be conscious of the fact that it's not representative of everyone's experience. And I imagine, you know, if you see an experience and it doesn't feel like you can see yourself in that, there can be envy and there can be a sense of failure, or what did I do wrong that I'm not feeling, you know, not experiencing that, or whatever it may be. And just to reflect back to you that I also have, in the last couple of months, have really felt the failures of my life. And I know that that might seem bizarre to you, because people look at my life and they think, oh my God, you know, she's an author, she's published 14 books, blah, blah, blah. But I really had a sense of real failure. And that kind of also, you know, put me in a space of wondering about the meaning of it all, and had I made the right decisions in my life and the right choices, because, you know, what am I really doing about climate change, and what skills do I really have to do anything meaningful? You know, is writing books actually the most meaningful thing I can do, and whatever. And I do have a sense of a kind of a higher power and a sense of like giving my life over to the universe. And in that space, my life has sort of taken a different course, and I'm actually going to be giving up my my work as an author, and I'm going to be working for a company that is working in seaweed, and this seaweed is being fed to livestock, because it reduces methane emissions. And it's a complete change from anything I've ever done, but it feels meaningful. And I don't think I would have gotten there if I hadn't reached a kind of a personal rock bottom. And when I say rock bottom, I mean, I'm not talking about suicidal ideation, but feeling like I don't know if I want to keep going feeling. And I think we all have those moments, you know, we all have those moments of, I don't know if I want to keep going. And, you know, there is a chapter in the book, I don't know if you've got there, which is called Old Enough to Die, where it's sort of, you sort of reach a certain point in your life where you sort of think, okay, look, I've had enough. I've had it all. I've done lots of great stuff, but I've had enough of the shit, right? I don't need any more. I don't need any more shit. And I think, you know, coming to terms with our mortality, with our failures, with the tragedy of life, I think is part of wisdom. I think that's what wisdom is realizing that life is not a rom-com. Life is not a neat little happy ending tied up, and that life is filled with tragedy. And it's how we are with tragedy, how we can be with tragedy, how we can find the laughter, that funny moment in the absolute heart of tragedy. And I think that for me is what being a real grown-up for me is about. Can I be with any moment that comes my way and really be with it? There's a beautiful little poem by Galway Kinnell, which I will look for it on my phone now. If somebody else will talk for a second, it's literally 3 lines, but I do want to find it.
So let's get someone, maybe while you're doing that, Joe. Ooh.
I want to find it. Is there somebody else who maybe wants to say?
Yeah, maybe we've got Jackie, Janelle, or Maddie have not spoken. Yeah, Jackie, Janelle, or Maddie, you haven't spoken. Would one of you like to speak, to share just a comment? Or I can see Jackie's getting ready for it. Go, Jackie. Oh, Janelle's moving. No, we'll come back to you, Janelle. Okay, go, Jackie.
Oh, thank you. Wow, it's hard to speak now, Sash, after hearing what you've said, and I'm really just wanting to give you a big hug. Yeah, no words, but just really feeling for you, honey. Yeah, big hug. I really felt, you know, to say about the book, like a couple of people have said, I can't put it down. I only got this in my hands, Faith, it was about a week ago that Faith gave me this. Thank you so much, Joe, for this beautiful gift. And I'm halfway through and I can't put it down. And it's so relatable. It is so funny. But it's also, I just keep having these aha moments where it's like, oh my God, you mean that's not just me? I feel like I'm reading so much in this book. I'm reading and I'm just relating to so many of these things. And it's almost like, who's been spying on me? Or how does she know that about me? It's really, I'm just really finding myself in so many of these situations and so many of these feelings that are expressed. And this thing about rage, I mean, I've really been experiencing that. And I live in, you know, I have my husband and my son. I don't have any other women in my house. And this rage that just arrives and nobody knows what to do with it, because as other people have said, I've always been, you know, the nice, happy, friendly, kind, lovely, pleasant person to be with. And then this rage just arrives. And yes, we're all in bed. I'm in bed too. That's a funny thing. Yeah.
I'm not in bed yet. I'm in my nice jacket. I'm sitting at my desk, but I'm getting into bed.
Joe,
I will be in bed in half an hour. You will see when we finish.
But this rage, and it's great to read about it and to hear people talk about it, and to know that it's not just me. It's all part of this thing that that I'm going through. And yeah, so many funny little things. I mean, there were moments where I just turned the page and went, oh my God. And just after this, the rage section that you just read, the very next, let me see, which page were you reading on?
166, 167.
166, 167. And then the very next page where you say, blah, blah, blah. If I brush past a stranger doused in Lynx Africa, 168. I have to lower my voice because my husband wears Lynx Africa. And I have to tell you that I literally have gone through this stage where I cannot stand the smell of it. And he's in the bathroom spraying it. And I'm going, oh, please, can you stop? Can you just stop? I can't handle it. Just take it away. And I read that and I went, oh.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's really crazy.
That is
so many details are just
incredible.
Absolutely spot on. So thank you.
So funny, Jackie. That is so funny. I mean, I can't believe that I got even the actual Lynx Africa connection with that. But I mean, you know, the thing that is so wonderful about writing often is when you recognize that your experience is really just an echo of other people's, and that you're not some kind of weirdo. You're not some kind of freak, that, you know, your life story echoes into other people's. And the more personal you can get, the more connected you actually become to other people. And so I love hearing that, Jackie. That really makes me laugh. So you know how many, I actually print out all the emails that people send me when they write to me. People write to me and thank me, and I print them out and I keep them, because exactly what you've said here is like, people felt like I was spying on them, that how did I know? It's just because we're all going through the same thing. That's why. It's not
exactly.
You're not
and
weird.
It's very encouraging to know it's not just me, and I'm not.
That's the thing. You're not
going crazy,
you're not going crazy. That's the thing, you know. And that's what exactly the kind of book I wanted to write. I wanted women to go, oh my God, this is like, that's me. Because when I saw Wine Country, I looked at that, I was like, that is not me. I don't hang out with women like that. I don't want to be women like that. Nothing about my life feels represented there. But I think we are starting to see more, more shows that are starting to be made with older women. There's this wonderful new movie that's coming up with Emma Thompson called Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, which I cannot wait to see, about a widow in her 70s who gets this male prostitute to come. She's never had an orgasm. And the whole movie is about her and him, and she's saying, listen, I want to experience pleasure. And it's about, I haven't seen the movie, but I have so many people recommend it to me. Now that's the kind of movie that I feel, you see here, you've got a protagonist in her 70s. She's the main character. She's the heroine of the story. And this is about her taking control of her pleasure, right? Those are the stories that I want to see. Those are the things that I want to see reflected. And I want people, when they read my books, people to see themselves in it. I don't want it to be that alienating thing, which is why, Sash, I do hear, why sometimes when you read this and you don't see yourself in it, it can feel a little alienating and you can feel a little on the outside. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as well. But I just wanted to read you the poem by Galway Kinnell, 3 lines, which is where I often find myself, because the biggest mistake we make in life is, what it is, wanting things to be different from how they are. That's the biggest mistake we make in life. That's where our suffering comes from, wanting things to be different from how they are. And this is a poem by Galway Kinnell called Prayer. And I often just read these 3 lines because it's a prayer. It goes, whatever happens, whatever what is what I want. Only that, but that. And so for me, that poem is about just saying, whatever happens, I accept. I can be with whatever happens. I want only what is, not what isn't, not what could have been, not what else, only what is. And that's my mantra for my life, to be with whatever happens, because we have no control over life. Today we can be fit and healthy, and tomorrow we can, like my mother, get a diagnosis of ovarian cancer, and that's it. Like your sister, Sash, it can happen to any one of us at any moment. And I think at this stage that we're at in our lives, we know it. We know it. We're not living in some kind of 20-year-old bubble where cancer and bad things happen to old and other people. It's right here. It's just pressing up against us. And today it's not with us, but tomorrow morning we could wake up and it could be a totally different story. And so I just want to be with whatever happens. I just lost my cousin. He was 67. And I know that the way that he died, the way that he went through his dying was a blessing. And he showed us in his dying what one of my favorite authors, Stephen Jenkinson, writes about. He's written a book called Die Wise, and he says that the greatest gift we can give to our families is to show them how to die. So when we are dying, which is going to happen to all of us, if we're lucky enough to die, if we don't die quickly, suddenly, if we have a chance to die over a period of time, is we actually have a chance to model that, how to die. And so you're going to die consciously, die lightly, die so that it's not a burden, die talking about death. I mean, Jackie, this is something that you can obviously speak much more about because you're a death doula, right? And Annabelle, are you also? Oh, you see, I think a lot of women of our age get to this point and we understand the value of exactly this, of holding the space, because it's going to be our turn soon. And so we learn as we go. My mother did not die consciously. My mother died in terror and in fear and distractedly. She just watched television and couldn't speak about it and didn't want to talk about it, and took a lot of antidepressants. My cousin Ian died very differently. Spoke about it. He sang a lot. He joked about it. he made it light for people. He made it, it's like, don't turn this into like a big deal, right? Just stay, you know, let's stay with the joy of the fact that I'm here now, and when I'm not here, I will be with you in other ways. So I just feel like we have access to that wisdom now. I think it's too soon when you're younger. You know how in Judaism, you can only study the Kabbalah the mysticism when you're over 40. I actually think that's a bit young. I think it should be over 50, because I think that when you know, there's certain things that one can really only truly understand when you reach a certain age. And I feel like understanding this thing about where we're at, truly being with where we're at, happens at this age. We really get to understand it. And that makes us kind of irresistible. We're kind of irresistible, is what I want to say, because there is nothing more irresistible than somebody who is really just in touch with how things are, not trying to make things different from how they are, not trying to be thinner, not trying to anti-age, not trying to be good, not trying to, you know, be somewhere where you're not, just being in the skin that you're in, and being okay with that.
Beautiful, Jo. That's gorgeous. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful quotes. I'd love you to share that. It's just so gorgeous.
I'll put it here in the
Just
chat.
put it in the chat.
It's Galway Kennel's poem. I'll just put it here. Galway.
I'm going to go to Janelle so that you can, so I want Janelle and Maddie to add their voices in, just so that we're, you know, we've done a complete women's circle. So Janelle, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm really enjoying tonight. And I have to admit, Joanne, I haven't read your book, but my interest is so piqued. I'm going to go out and get it tomorrow. I cannot wait to dive into it. It sounds absolutely divine. I'm a woman in my late 60s, and what I can give to you is it's such a rich time. It's such an honor to be here. As you say, we've lost friends, we've lost family, we've lost people along the way. So grateful to be at this age. Every day is a bonus, it's a gift. And I guess how I live is women in our 60s, we've got time to do what we want. We've got time for ourselves. All our life we've given to our families, our friends, our society, and we still are, of course, but we've got time to do what nurtures our soul, what's good for us. So I guess my mantra that I live by is accept what is and let go. Let go, nothing's that important. To just be loving and kind and enjoy life. And, you know, help wherever we can, for sure. We've got to give back, continue to give back, but there's so much good out there too, but understanding people have different journeys, that I'm absolutely in awe of you, how you can write all these things in your book and touch so many stories that are out there, which are just be so interesting to read, I should imagine. And as we know, there's all these characters in the world.
Well, Janelle, thank you. I actually spent a lot of time talking to different women when I was collecting stories. I had virtual evenings like this, where I invited women to come and talk to me. And I had topics that I wanted to talk about, you know, marriage, sex, children, work. And I wanted to know, what do we talk about? What do we think about at this age? And I just literally gathered stories. And then I went away with groups of women. I went and spent 2 nights in a cave, literally.
I love that.
It was amazing. It was just incredible. The kind of thing I would never have done before. You know, the other thing I've become is an ocean swimmer in my old age. You know,
good.
And I never would have put myself at that kind of risk when I was younger. I think because I was just worried that if something happened to me, what would happen to my children. Now I know that you know, one of the greatest gifts I ever got was a couple of years ago, having a conversation with my daughter when she was a teenager. Maybe she was 19 or even 20, and I was worrying about something, and she looked at me and she said, you know, Mum, if you died, you know, we would be sad. We would be so sad, but we would be okay. And that was the greatest gift my child has ever given me, was that she said to me, when you die, I'm going to be okay. I just felt completely released from something that was my own making. Of course,
It's your own
children
prison. You
survive.
put yourself
That's
in
right.
that. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right. You
Trying
know,
to be everything for everybody, you know, like they couldn't survive without me.
exactly.
Yes, they will. Of course they will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I love the fact now that my children's problems are their problems. Like, if they want my advice, I'm here, but like, don't bother me with your shitty life decisions. Like, you know, when you make a mistake and you need bailing out or you need advice, I'm here. I'll be here. But go and make your mistakes. Go and do your stuff. God, I don't know, I feel like I spend so much of my time as a mother trying to like stop my children from suffering, which is just such a waste of time. And it's actually
suffering is a part of life.
Exactly. You're robbing them of life, you know. But you only see that now. You know, and I wish I could go back and let them have made more mistakes or, you know, done things differently. But that's what I mean by, you know, I said earlier to Sasha about the tragedy. You know, you look at your life and you can see all the tragedies of it. And there's nothing terrible about regret and tragedy. I think at our age, we can be with tragedy. We can be with regret. We can be with those things. We can be with grief. You know, we can actually and still be wonderfully alive with it all, and actually be alive because of it all, because we're holding it all. We're not just holding clinging to one side of life. We're able to hold everything together, you know, that quote, let everything happen to you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jo. Now I want to get Maddie, because we've just got 5 more minutes. Maddie, do you want to just add your voice? Anything you want to add to what we just talked about, or say anything to Jo, or any questions?
Certainly listening to the author read from their book is just one of the greatest gifts that they can give to their audience. It is just magnificent listening to Jo read. And also I relate so much because I've now gone through menopause, I've gone through the angry stage, and I've accepted that I'm a crone, and I'm so excited that I can live my life now. I don't have anyone to look after. It's just me and the journey ahead. So it's 2 lives that we have. And I relate to everything that Jo said, and I have loved listening to her read. So thank you so much for organising it. I have loved every minute, and my heart goes out to Sasha. It is heartbreaking listening to you. I've had a number of friends go through similar things, and I don't know what I can say to make it easier for you. It's just really hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Thank you so much. So Jo, maybe just a few minutes just to wind us up, you know, just to leave us wanting more, or wind us down, as it is nearly bedtime for most of us.
Okay. Well, what I want to say is that, you know, I'm sort of embarking on a new phase in this new job. And what's really interesting, it's going to be very fascinating, is that I'm working with men. I have not worked with men for ever, really. I've only ever chosen to work with women. And so it's going to be, I don't think I could have worked with men before. I don't have really a lot of tolerance for a lot of the stuff that comes with working with men. And so it's going to be very interesting to see whether I can take the, what I feel is a kind of equanimity, an ability to be with stuff that is difficult into this new role and not get angry. Or when I'm angry, to see how that manifests, how it comes out. I feel poised on the edge of something new. And I also feel like when we get to this age, spaces like this where we come together with other women and we share the details of our lives, I hope that we recognize like how important it's, like exercise, like it's really important for our health, like for our emotional, spiritual, mental health, to gather in these ways and share. And as you say, Jackie, recognize your experience reflected in someone else's experience, because that, Sash, is like the thing of not feeling alone. And I think that's our biggest need right now, is that a lot of us just want to know that we're not alone. And I think just being able to put your hand out and have somebody go, I got you, I see you, I feel you, you know, I witness you. I witness you. I'm here to witness you, I think is really important. And I think at our age, we're becoming elders. We are becoming elders for others, whether they're our own children or other people's children or just the younger generation. They're looking to us. They're looking to us. And that's what I mean about my cousin, the way he died. I think the way we live now can be such an inspiration to the younger generation who are really facing such troubled futures. So how we hold ourselves, how we live, how we handle the difficulties of life, that those all, I think, become a kind of beacon for others. And so nothing is wasted. Our life experience is not wasted. Our difficulties are not wasted. Our pain is not wasted. Our suffering is not wasted. And I think being able to just be spacious enough to hold it all that stuff that's happened to us, and be with other people's difficulties, pain and suffering. Like, I mean, you know, maybe when we were younger, perhaps hearing Sasha's story, one might want to rush in and fix and help and solve. And when you get to our age, you know that that's all bullshit. There's nothing that you can do to fix somebody's life. To, you know, all you can do is hold and be with it. Just be with it without it doing anything more than just holding that space, witnessing. And that's what we can do for each other. And that's what I feel you've all done for me tonight. I feel so grateful that you've all shared this time with me, this space with me, in the pages of Unbecoming, in this little circle that we've shared. And so I want to bless you all and thank you all. And say again how every time I'm just with a group of women like this, I am just reminded why I just love women so much. And it just reminds me of, you know, everything that I think, it just reinforces it. So I just want to say thank you to all of you, and to Faith for organizing this, and for all of you and all the things you've shared with me tonight. I'm going to carry it into my sleep and into the rest of my week. So thank you. Faith, you off. You are